This is the best of the regulars on Talk Sports Radio, Extra 90.5.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Good morning, Brian Goldfinger. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm doing very good. Haven't seen you since Christmas. Everything went well? Everything went swimming?
Over the holidays, everything was great. But first and foremost, before we get into this, a big shout out to the OPP for giving me a warning today on the 115. Just a warning. Thank you to that officer. A big shout out. Keep up the good work.
135, 36.
Let's not talk about it. Just thank you, officer. And kudos to the OPP who continue to do a great job keeping our streets safe.
Now, when that happens, do you let it slip that you're a lawyer?
No,
or what?
not at all. Not at all. It is very meek.
Obviously, hasn't been to a Pete's game, hasn't seen your face up on the board there.
I have, my license and registration and insurance ready to go. Everything's in order and just, very meek, and you don't let it slide or slip. And the officer did ask me, what do you do for a living? And I told them that I'm a lawyer. And some officers like lawyers. They like Crown attorneys because they're on the same team. They're putting the bad guys, the criminals, in jail. Some officers don't like lawyers because they're the ones getting these bad guys out of jail. And some officers just don't like lawyers anyways. So you never know which way it's going to go. I thought, look, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Thank you to the OPP.
You know what? It's interesting you say that because I learned very quickly as well when I get pulled over, and it hasn't happened in quite some time. But when you get pulled over, vehicle turned off, all the windows are down, I have everything at the ready, and my hands are on top of the steering wheel, and I wait.
Yeah.
Don't give them any reason to want to kind of give you a hard time, because they will be more than happy to work with you if you work with them, and not give them any, can you put your window down a little bit more, or, that they're going to ask for your...
See, I thought Brian would go full-on lawyer tricks, listen, you look into it. I had a friend whose dad was a lawyer, whatever it did. Long story short, he got a big ticket, and then they had some lawyer go and look into it, and it was like, well, when was the last time that you took a radar gun test? He really started digging into it. He said, well, this radar gun is actually not the recommended one to use for blah, 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 blah. And then eventually he just got in the OPP's head and they just said, no, it's not worth it. So they ended up throwing out the ticket.
That could be it, but it could go the other way. They just say, all right, you're getting the ticket. And then if you get the ticket and you want to fight in court, you still got to go to court to fight it. So it's just being kind at that point of attacker, so to say.
I'm not on trial. The system's on trial.
That's pretty much it.
Right.
Brian Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. I wanted to ask you about this. I know we kind of touch on this, once a year, I guess, when you come in here, but I think it's important, and especially for somebody like me who's maybe a first-time homeowner, but just kind of the requirements when it comes to cleaning your property, especially because of the amount of snow we've been having lately.
Yeah, there's like a great shot, I think it was on This Hour Has 24 Minutes or something like that, of the neighbor who doesn't clear his or her snow from their home. In any event, if you are a property owner, and even if you are renting premises, and it depends on what your rental contract says, you have an obligation to clear your ice, your snow, etc., to make your premises safe for invitees to the premises. Who is an invitee? Let's say you invite me over to your house for lunch, and I go to your house, and you did not clear your snow, and you did not clear your snow and ice for a number of days, whereas everyone else in the whole city has. And I am wearing my boots, but I slip and fall on ice because you have not cleared it and you have not maintained it. And I sustain a bad ankle fracture. That can happen. And I would hate to sue you, but I've sustained a bad ankle fracture. Now I need surgery. I need physiotherapy. I cannot return to work. Unfortunately, I would need to sue you. You, as the property owner, have an obligation to keep your premises safe for invitees. I'm an invitee at your home for that lunch, such as me. Now, while I name you personally in the lawsuit, it's not you who's paying out of pocket. And we talked about that the last time we were here. It's the insurance company, and that's why it's important to have homeowners or property or rental insurance on your property, because if I need to sue you, I would hate to sue you personally because you don't have insurance, and then the only repercussion is that you then need to pay me personally And if you don't have the money to pay, perhaps I put a lien on your home. I would hate to do that.
It's interesting you brought this up, too, because when I was delivering pizzas, I would run into this problem this time of year. I hate this time of year, and I knew there were certain neighborhoods I hated to go to simply because either they may shovel, but they wouldn't throw salt down, so there'd be big mounds of ice, or you had to go up some very interesting staircases that were not salted properly, or they were metal, and it had just finished snowing or freezing over.
Right. The thing with the pizza delivery guy, or any delivery guy who's in the course of his or her employment, if they're an employee, let's say you're working at one of these big pizza chains and you are an employee, you would then not have the opportunity to sue. You then have to go through workers' compensation or WSIB. So WSIB or workers' comp acts as a bar or a shield to suing. So if it did not happen in the course of your employment, i.e. me visiting Jordan for lunch, then yes, I can sue. But if you're the pizza delivery guy and you sustain that ankle fracture in the course of your employment, you then have to go through WSIB.
What about if you're a non-invitee, so you're a door-to-door or whatever?
Door-to-door canvasser.
Sure.
I've represented those door-to-door canvassers who are contractors and sued the property owner successfully. So that can happen as well, because you have an obligation to make it, I wouldn't say safe for the public, but it's reasonable for somebody to say, put something in your mailbox, or perhaps even if you don't want them, knock door to door and say, hey, can I save you some bucks on your gas bill, sort of say. So it's a bit gray in that area, but we've been successful helping people out in that regard.
Okay, so I need to stop and get salt on the way home.
Get some salt, get some salt.
Well, here's the problem, and tell me what, like, on this situation, I have my neighbors, because I'm in an attached, they call it a garden home now, because that's a nicer way of saying town. Like,
this sounds
like
luxurious.
Attached.
Wow.
Yeah, it's attached. So my neighbors have a downspout, and water comes out of it, and for whatever reason, the water flows onto my driveway, so I end up with huge chunks of ice. So maybe I should sue them.
No, you should talk it over. Is it like a condo corp sort of situation?
No. I don't know what a condo corp is. It's not a condo.
Okay,
no.
so
like there's two houses, and then they're just like attached houses. Basically.
Right. Maybe you talk to your neighbor and you talk about the downspout issue and see how you can best resolve it in terms of
I like the idea of suing instead.
Guiding the water, or if you want to sue, let's get you up.
I know the man to call if that's the case. Brian, you put out a very good blog, and I know it's a couple of weeks old now, but I thought it was a very important message, and maybe a message that gets lost a little bit. And it had to do with Bell Let's Talk Day.
Yeah.
And you had a very cool and engaging blog, and it kind of gave a different perspective, legally, and how workers can end up in all of that kind of stuff. So while it was good to talk about it, there's some other things that we need to pay attention to as well.
So Bell Let's Talk initiative, if you don't know about it, it's dealing with mental health issues. And we have a Bell Let's Talk Day. I say we, I'm not Bell, but Bell has a Bell Let's Talk Day. And they've raised millions and millions of dollars towards mental health. And everyone thinks about personal injury, well, somebody's in a cast or somebody broke their leg and they're in a wheelchair and you can see it. It's visible. The thing with mental health or psychological injury is it's totally invisible. And somebody may be functioning normally, say, in the workplace, but you don't see them when they go home. And when they go home, they might be a complete nervous wreck, feelings with anxiety, depression, despair, and sadness. And a lot of our clients, when it comes to long-term disability claims, so that's having a long-term disability through work, through a company, say like Manulife, Great West Life, Sun Life, Standard Life, etc. And for whatever reason, that person cannot return to work because of their mental state, anxiety, depression, hopelessness, suicidal ideations. So your coworkers might not see that person's persona in the office, but when they go home, they have struggles with it, and it may get to the point where they're no longer able to work. And a lot of people kind of don't talk about that. We represent a lot of people on their long-term disability claims when the coworkers say, well, the person can't be injured. He or she came into work every day. They looked fine, but they weren't around them, and they don't have the notes of the psychologist or psychiatrist or counselor. They don't know the amount of meds that they're taking to keep them kind of stable. And for a lot of people, there's only so long they can keep up that routine.
Very interesting, kind of just a different ability, and kind of makes you think a little bit. And hopefully we're getting a little bit better in recognizing that, and I think that's something that we always talked about too with Bell Let's Talk Day. All right, let's shuffle it up for a second here, Brian, because I got to know, and you're the man to tell me. Is this the year the Toronto Raptors go to the NBA Finals?
Well, we should be talking about trade deadline first.
Hold on, yes.
Today's a big day.
Today's a huge day.
Today's the NBA trade deadline.
Absolutely.
So before that question, do the Raptors win the championship? Do you think the Raptors are going to make any moves today?
No.
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 Not
I would like one, but
What would you like?
It's tough because their bench is playing really well right now.
Yeah, no,
too.
they've got a vibrant bench right now. Their starting group is good. I mean, there's no. Why would you upset the apple cart unless LeBron James decides I need to be in Toronto tomorrow? I got no interest in.
Which there's been rumors that they might, but he's not going to waive his no trade deal, anyways. But Brian, what do you think? Would you stand pat?
I would. I'd always look for more shooting. Because I think shooting's their Achilles heel. If CJ Miles isn't hitting threes off the bench, and Norman Powell hasn't found his way back into the rotation, he's a good three-point shooter. And if DeLon Wright isn't hitting his three, then they got a problem. So I would look for kind of another 3-and-D wing, finding them there at a premium. I had a crazy idea about looking at Anthony Tolliver on the Detroit Pistons, because the Detroit Pistons right now, they're in kind of a weird state where they got Blake Griffin. I don't know if they're going to be buyers or sellers, but you never know. I'd kind of kick the tires on that. Who do you give up? I don't know. That's why I'm not being paid the big bucks over there at MLSC to make these decisions. Yeah, but today's a fun day for the trade deadline. Today's a fun day in the NBA.
It certainly is. And we've seen the struggles of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we looked at what Toronto was able to do to Boston there earlier this week. A couple of very notable wins. So, do you feel good? Do you like their chances? Like, where are you?
I never like anyone's chances going up against LeBron James. So if you watched the game last night against Minnesota, his buzzer beater with 1 second left
one of the
to go
best games all year
in OT, I'm still convinced that 1 second, that was the longest second I've ever seen. Because LeBron had a chance he caught the ball, he did a spin, I guess he got the shot off. Friendly clock keepers over there in Cleveland. It was a great play, but going against LeBron James, I would never bet against him.
I'm glad you said that, because I watched the highlight last night. With 1 second left, I'm going, wow, that's an awful long second.
Yeah, yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the Christian Laettner play once upon a time, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking about. But the Laettner play was from the baseline, which made it more incredible. This inbound was from the sideline. What do you guys think about Isaiah Thomas kind of shaking up things in Cleveland with all the things he's saying?
It just does not quite fit, right? Like, he got off to a bad start because he got hurt, no fault of his own, but it just doesn't seem to fit, and he certainly doesn't address any sort of defensive woes, and that really is the Cavaliers' Achilles heel right now. It's interesting, Cleveland struggling, of course, Golden State not playing very well either yet, and now Houston is actually within a game of Golden State over in the Western Conference.
That's called the championship hangover. Everyone got paid, everyone got their ring or rings. It's just that's what made Michael Jordan so impressive, because night after night he was winning, and he won championship after championship, and that's why, in my opinion, he's the greatest of all time.
Well, and I was going to ask you that question too, because that's something that comes up. I know LeBron James, youngest player to 30,000. I mean, he might end up being the all-time leading scorer, yada, 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 but I had this with one of my friends who's in the LeBron camp, and I'm in the MJ camp, and to me, they're still not even super close. I don't know, but you're a Michael Jordan guy?
Michael Jordan, yeah. Well, I think that the swing is, for a lot of people who are in the LeBron camp, they never had a good chance to watch Michael Jordan play. And if you watch Michael Jordan play, if he wasn't winning with his scoring, and he was so clutch in the fourth quarter, he never missed. He was winning with his defense, and he was on the all NBA defensive team year after year. And if nothing else, his defense totally shut down the other player's star, and he wouldn't shy away from guarding the other player's star. Like every game, he said, "I'm taking their best player. Period. I don't care if I get gassed on offense. This is how it's got to be."
You know, it's interesting because what I get thrown at is, one, LeBron's bigger and stronger. Okay,
yeah,
fine.
He is. Yeah,
but people forget about Michael Jordan. I mean, that one year, I think he averaged 33 points a game, won Defensive Player of the Year, and I think he won Defensive Player of the Year 2 times, if I'm not mistaken. And he averaged 32, 8, and 8. So the numbers that LeBron's putting up, while they're impressive, I mean, Michael was kind of putting up similar numbers, and for some reason, people just tend to kind of forget that and think it was all scoring, but it wasn't all scoring.
No, it wasn't. And the thing. Look, LeBron is phenomenal, and he's bigger and certainly more durable. The thing that I don't like about LeBron is I feel like he plays too big a role in shaping the team's personnel, and I don't think that's his role as a star player. I think his role as a star player is to go out there and win games and uplift everyone around him. He does a good job, I suppose, at uplifting, but I think he's a bit too vocal on the personnel, and he's been really the author of his own misfortune because Kevin Love, they've been trying to trade him since 2016, and what's his face, Kyrie Irving wanted out of town because LeBron, wanted out. And in return, they got essentially a poison pill in Isaiah Thomas. You got an injured player who's not only injured and a liability on defense, but he's really shaking up that locker room with the things that he says. He's a cancer in that locker room.
The one thing you can't throw at me, too, because the game has changed, and Brian, you're a basketball fan old enough to remember that. I mean, don't give me that LeBron shoots threes better than Michael Jordan. It didn't matter back then.
No, it didn't matter.
Like, Larry Bird led the league in three-pointers one year with like 80. They just didn't. That wasn't part of the offense. That wasn't part of the game.
That's right. Look, if you shot the three, you were soft, right? You were giving up on taking the ball to the rim and getting a foul and going to the foul line. And I also think that the way the game is taught right now, just the kids coming out of college, they're way better three-point shooters, and that's something that's taught, whereas the three-point line is a relatively new NBA creation, so when guys are coming up in the system, they're not being taught and told, you need to learn how to shoot the corner three. It's important for your game. What was important for their game coming up was taking the ball to the hole, drawing the foul, getting to the foul line, because that's the high percentage play.
We got a text message, 705-874-9050. You and I are in the MJ camp. It says, Graham Elliott, you are in the Meadowlark Lemon camp. Wow. Nice.
I have no idea what that means.
He was with the Harlem Globetrotters, if I'm not mistaken. He was a good basketball player, too. Brian Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. If somebody's interested in getting a hold of you and talking either personal injury law or basketball, Brian, how do they go about doing that?
They can certainly email me at Brian, BRIAN, at goldfingerlaw.com, or visit the website for all our contact information at goldfingerlaw.com.
This is the best of the regulars on Talk Sports Radio, Extra 90.5.